everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Movies That Move We. So, this is our first, yeah, our first show for December. We got one more, and then we're taking a break into the new year because holiday season things get hectic. But today, we are going to be talking about the movie Robert Peace. If you haven't seen it yet, you can check it out on Netflix. It's based on the book The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. This was written by his college roommate, Jeff. What was Jeff's name? Jeff Hobbs. Okay. Jeff Hobbs was also one of the writers for the film. And Chiwetel Ejiofor was also writer and director. He played the role of Robert Peace's father, Robert Skeet Douglas. Just gonna give you the cast, keep it simple. Mary J. Blige played Jackie Peace, Robert's mother, and she was also an executive producer for this film. And playing the lead role, Jay Will as Robert Peace. So what is this all about? Why was his life short? What was tragic about it? It's complicated, to put it best. He was a young kid growing up in South Orange, New Jersey, and he really smart. Could do math off the top of his head. Both his mother and father, although living separately, they encouraged him to keep up with his studies. He loved math. He loved science. And at a young age, he decided that he wanted to be a doctor. Okay. His father, however, and clearly his father was just as smart because he was coaching his son using real life things, baseball averages and stuff like that, would encourage him by saying, all right, we're going to go listen to the baseball game back at my house. This player, I don't know, what's his average? If he does this, that, and the other, I don't know baseball, so please forgive me for not knowing the terms. But if he does this, that, and that, what's the average? Excuse me. And it was a game for them. He would count down and his son would figure out in his head what the average for that player would be. So, even though his parents weren't living together, didn't really get along, they did the best that they could for their son. And their best was more than good enough because he grew up and went to Yale. His mom put him in private school locally, and he applied to all the schools. He, at one point, when considering colleges, considered staying close to home, and his mother was like, absolutely not. Again, that push, and that part of that push was get out of this place so you can do better for yourself. And she encouraged him to go further away from home. He got into Yale. And things around that time, well, actually, when he was 10, things kind of shifted and his perspective shifted as far as his why for doing all of those things. You want to talk a little bit about that?
So, like the why as far as
like what it's not that he shifted his focus from going to school, but his motivation for going to college and studying biology and what have you.
Yeah, it kind of, I would call it more like, I just felt like he was trying to do both. But like, unfortunately, I feel like more of his energy ended up going into helping his dad out, because his goal was still, like, he was still talking to his professors about, doing the graduate program and all that other stuff. he was still really good in school. Like, he wasn't slacking off or anything. He ended up graduating with honors and all that. But I think he was trying to balance more so living his life, continuing to do those things, have a social life, do the things that he was more passionate about, or focus on things that he was more passionate about, versus, oh, I gotta do this, that, and the third to help my dad out, and I have to.
Yeah.
His whole why essentially was more so about his dad than it was about
taking care of everything outside of himself.
Yeah, like, he wasn't, and it became a thing, which I think a lot of people, no matter what they're going through, I think a lot of people kind of struggle with, is he was kind of putting himself on the back burner when it came to his stuff. And putting his dad on the front burner, like, oh, I got to take care of this first, kind of thing.
And his dad was accused of murdering 2 women and ended up going to jail. Now, Robert took it upon himself to take a look at all the evidence because, again, for him, he processed that scientifically. There's logic involved in it. Everything has a reason. Everything has an outcome. Everything has consequences. So he's sitting there looking at the full picture. And when he started looking at how the legal process worked for his father, he realized, wait a minute. Information was withheld that could have gotten you a speedy trial. The person who could have helped exonerate you died within that time before you came to trial. So this should be thrown out. And because his son, as a teenager, was successful in identifying that, his father came to rely on him to help get him out. And I think that kind of messed with him. It wasn't out of guilt, it was obligation. This is my dad. I believe he didn't do it, and so I'm going to help him, and he asked me to help him. And that's what it came, that's where his why changed.
And I also found it kind of interesting how even in the beginning of the movie, it was like every time he went to go visit his dad would make him like repeat that he didn't do this kind of thing. So I felt like from a young age,
before he went into
he even went into like college and doing all that, it was like he was programmed at a very young age to kind of like take on the responsibility of like kind of protecting his dad, but also like believing that, okay, this is what it is, and I have to kind of advocate for him during this time. You know, yeah, he took it upon himself, but it was like his dad, I felt like, in my opinion, his dad was kind of like putting that on him at such a young age, you know, like putting a lot of responsibility on him. And even, you know, the contrast of the other characters that he kind of ran into when he went to college and everything, once they found out about the situation, they were like, dude, like, you need to focus on you and like live your life, because it's like you're doing a lot of stuff to basically kind of appease your dad. I mean, even the way his dad reacted when he would tell him like, hey, I don't have it all together right now, but it's like that's a lot to put on not only a kid, but just like a person in general. I mean, he's pretty much your lawyer. He's going to college full time. He's working on the side. Like he's
working. He's picked up a side hustle on campus to try and generate income. During the process, his father got brain cancer, and so he was like, hey, I'm studying brain cancer. I know all the latest medications. I'm going to make sure you're taken care of while you're in there.
His dad was his lawyer, his accountant, his son, his doctor. It's like, I just felt like, I don't know. I
don't want to say, he had a chance to be a kid, but he didn't have a chance to be a kid.
And I felt so bad because it's like, you know, and I don't want to say this in vain or like, but I didn't like his dad. I didn't like his dad because I felt like if his dad didn't put that on him, like seeing how the evolution of it, like from when it like the whole thing began, he even was saying like, this is where my childhood ended. Like, I wasn't a kid at that point. I became everything for my dad, and my life was put on hold in a sense to do for my dad. And again, I think we should always be there for family, but I don't know. I just felt like that's so much to put on
his responsibility.
Yeah, and like if he really, and again, I don't want to say his dad didn't love him or anything, but it's like if you really cared about that, then like why not push
that burden?
Yeah, don't let him carry that burden. And then it's like, why are you like getting mad at him because he's not there yet with the situation of getting your legal stuff straightened out, and look at all the other stuff he's doing.
Well,
like,
I get it. Here's, and again, this story is so layered and complex. There's a couple of things. One, when you're growing up in the type of environment that he was growing up in that area of New Jersey, this was like in the 80s, early 90s. That was rough. The neighborhoods were rough. Okay? His mom lived on the better side of town, but it was still rough. He was exposed to a lot of things. His mom did the best that she could to protect him after his father was locked up. His father was desperate. He's like, I'm innocent. I didn't do this. I have no idea who this woman was. I don't see how anybody could have said that I knew them or anything, because I really didn't, you know? And so he was desperate to get out. And when his son, at such a young age, his son was like, what, in middle school, high school? When his son at a young age said, wait a minute, Dad, I've reevaluated the facts, and here's where we are, he gave his father hope, because he did get his dad out. His dad was out for roughly a month. And so his dad was, you got to do it again. You know, all of a sudden he was treating this like when he was testing him in the car and saying, okay, what's the average? It's like, okay, you've done it again. Now repeat the process, because I know you can. His father needed him. His father knew he had someone who believed in him, and his belief in his son came across as demand and desperation. That's kind of how I looked at it. While he was at Yale, again, this was in the 80s, the late 80s. He's at Yale, and he's one of a few Black people that got in. This was during a time where people were talking about affirmative action, and that places like Yale, Ivy League schools, kind of felt pressure to take on people of color, students of color, who they felt may not have gotten into Yale otherwise, because they weren't qualified enough. And, you know, studies were done and showed, hey, these folks, non-white folks, they got the same grades as white folks. The white folks get in on average more than these other folks do. And so he was kind of one of the few that got in. And they didn't delve too deep into that, but they did point out that imbalance amongst the students while he was there. And again, that's another pressure that he had to deal with. You know, he's one of a few burnt Rice Krispies in the bowl of milk, and he has to do with that. He has to prove that he belongs there. He found the small group of minority students he could connect with, that they all had this thing in common. And he was still trying to raise money to help his dad, going back home, figuring out the case, all of this stuff. And what ended up happening was he figured out, I can sell weed. I can sell weed. As a matter of fact, since I'm in the lab, I can go ahead and work
Enhance
on
it.
this strain, enhance it, and make it something a little bit better that people will want more. And he almost lost his degree for that. You know, his friends helped him get rid of the stash before, the dean and the campus police found the money and the stash. So he did manage to graduate from Yale with honors. He went back to his hometown and he started working on the community. He again putting himself aside. He didn't stop and say, "All right, whew, I got the degree. What am I going to do for myself now?" It was still very much about taking care of dad. And then he said, "Okay, well, one of the ways that I can make money to take care of my dad is to flip some of these houses. There's a lot of vacant houses in East Orange." And his mother said to him, "Why are you going back to where your dad was? You need to do some stuff for yourself." His girlfriend said the same thing to him, and she told him, "Hey, I'm not sticking around here. I'm going back to Rio because my mom found me a job with a non-government organization." And so he was kind of like, "All right, well, I guess I'll go back home." And part of it is because he did not, he lost sight of his why. By the end of the film, he figured out his why. He realized that everything that he was doing was, he just couldn't carry everything around his father anymore. The properties he sold were doing well. And then, I don't know, some of y'all remember when subprime lending was a big thing, that hit the real estate market hard. And so all of these investments that he was making around town shot. He lost a lot of money on the properties. And what did he do? He went back to what he knew how to do to get money quick, and it backfired on him. Okay. Um, Jeff Hobbs, again, was his roommate and the author of the book. And he retold his story. I haven't read the book. I started reading the book a couple of years ago, and at the time I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. This is a hard story to go through because you have someone who's doing so well. And I'll have to go back and read it. But at the time, I was afraid of what I was going to hear next and how bad it got. But the bottom line is, he was doing, and I know someone out there is going to say, there's never a good reason. There's never a good reason. But he was doing something bad with good intent, is really what it came down to. And it was working until it wasn't. So ultimately, he was about 30 when he passed away. And, hence the title of the book, The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. This is a great story to watch and reflect on. And even, I know I always recommend, watch this with your kids. Watch it with your kids. Watch it with your kids. And actually take it beyond, this is why you don't do drugs. It's like, ask, what do you feel like you're carrying? Ask yourself, what am I putting on my kids? Because I think I've asked you that a few times.
Yeah, because I mean, just thinking about his whole life, I just feel horrible because it's like his upbringing has such a huge impact on like what ultimately happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of like at the end of the day, like he was this smart guy. He had all the makings of somebody that should have graduated, went to graduate school, had this super high paying job, family, kids, normal life. But he didn't get to do that because he was just so caught up in like stuff that started when he was a kid, stuff that was kind of put on him at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just kind of, and then even being in the environment that he was in at that young age, it's like, I don't know. It's just kind of like, I hate to even go there with the whole product of the environment and all this other stuff, but it's just kind of like.
Because to a certain point, he wasn't.
Yeah, he wasn't, but it was just like, and he was even trying to change certain things about his environment. It was just kind of like, in order to kind of get a leg up, he kind of went backwards.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I just feel, honestly, I would really like to see this kind of turned into a documentary and them like kind of bring in people that knew him and that, like, honestly, I really kind of wanted to hear from like the guy that wrote the book, from the guy that helped him with the real estate stuff, his girlfriend at the time. Like I would love to kind of hear from them on their perspective of like what was going through his mind at that time, what life was like for him, because it was depicted well in this movie, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like it would be so cool to like see them do like a documentary or something on it.
Yeah. Because I mean, when you think about it, he was a success. He did what we expected.
Like if he made it a little bit longer into it, he would have been fine.
Yeah, because he was looking to get out. It was, let's sell the drugs. We could do that quick and easy. We can make the money in this many weeks and then be out.
Yeah, he was about to go to school and everything.
He was ready. He called his girlfriend and was like, all right, I want you to come see me. I want to come see you. Where would you be willing to do that? And he made his decision about graduate school based on that, because for the first time in his life, he was like, okay, I'm gonna follow advice and I'm gonna make a decision for me.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't get to see it through. But as far as everything else, he did what we want our kids to do. He got the good grades in elementary, middle, high school. He got the scholarship to go to one of the best schools in the country. He graduated from that school with honors. Stumbled, but he still gave to his community. He went back to the school that
and taught
he was taught in, and he became a teacher there, and he had kids excited about learning. He was a success, and sadly he didn't get to see that all the way through. But this is on Netflix. Check it out. Definitely a good movie. Bit of a tearjerker, but definitely worth seeing, and even amongst yourselves, have a chat about it, because it's a deep story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a deep story, and again, check out the book. The book is The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace. It was written by his college roommate Jeff Hobbs, and proceeds from the book go to St. Benedict's Prep, which is where Robert went to high school.
And where he taught at.
And where he taught. And towards the end, they showed they had his plaque on the wall as well. So in spite of what he did, and the priest who ran the school gave the next group of kids a speech and talked about grace. So, you can look past the worst that somebody did and say they did the worst, but we can't ignore
all the good best that they did. Yeah,
right. So that is all we have for today. Next week, if you give me a second to find it, next week, what is the movie with Jordan Sparks?
Not Jordan Sparks.
It's not Jordan
Christine
Sparks.
Milian.
I am so sorry, Jordan. Yeah, Christine Milian. Meet Me Next Christmas, also on Netflix. That's what we're going to be doing next week. So get your watch on so we can talk about it. Now, I'm usually not the Christmas romance person. I'm kind of, I roll.
But I saw Kofi.
And that's all she needed.
Honestly, I'm really not a Christmas romance person at all. It's crazy because I like romantic comedies and dramas and things like that, but I've never been the girl that was watching Christmas Lifetime and Christmas Freeform or ABC, whatever it was.
Yeah.
I was never that girl. I was always with my Christmas classics, like the little cartoons and, you know, Ralphie and all that. But, like, I saw Kofi and I said, oh, I think I gotta check this movie out.
It was a wrap. So, anyway, we'll be back with that next week. So until then, thanks again for joining us. Follow our page on Facebook, Movies That Move We. Follow us on YouTube, search Movies That Move We. And you can see our entire playlist from all the way back in 2020 or somewhere around there. It's been a while that we've been doing this. And don't forget to tell a friend, tell a neighbor. And until next week, bye.